Hey everyone, I'm Vas, a Greek Australian girl who's all about food and traditional living. So join me as we dive into the world of healthy, whole foods, from scratch cooking and old school recipes. We'll be exploring everything from simple, no sugar meals to fast friendly dishes, plus baking, beekeeping and gardening. I'm all about clean eating and I'd love to hear your tips, your recommendations and recipe requests. Let's get into it. So today we're making potato chips. So we're going to start off by peeling the potatoes. Just giving you guys a heads up, we're making these potatoes 4 different ways. So we're deep frying some, we're putting some in the oven, and we're also adding different seasonings and flavors to certain ones. So we're going to clean off all the skin and then we're going to just rinse them off just in case they still have any dirt on them. Then we're going to grate our potatoes thin. So as you guys can see, I'm using this tool. If you guys don't have this tool, you can still slice them with a knife. It would just be very hard because you want to try and get your potatoes as thin as possible to get the nice crispy and crunchy texture that everyone loves when they have chips. Then next we're going to get a bowl out and we're going to put ice in it. Make sure the water is cold that you're going to be filling it with, and then we're just going to soak our potatoes in. So as that container filled up where I was grating my potatoes, I put them into the water. Once I had all my potatoes in the water, I put a timer on for 5 minutes and left them to sit in the water. Now I did mix them a bit and make sure that they all separated from each other and that they were all completely submerged in the water. Then once they've sat and soaked for 5 minutes, we're going to place them in a strainer, and then once they're out on the strainer and I've got rid of most of the water, then I'm going to place them on a towel or on paper towel and I'm going to pat them dry. Now this step did take a while, especially that I did quite a few potatoes, and you want to make sure that you get as much water off your potatoes as possible. So I did change the paper towel underneath in between my potatoes. So you're just going to lay them out flat, make sure one's not on top of the other, and you're just going to pat them down with another paper towel to make sure that there's nothing left on them. As usual, I will put in the description below the methods and the ingredients that are needed to make this recipe, and I hope so far you guys are enjoying this recipe. It is a bit labor intensive, but it is so worth it and you guys will see the results at the end, so stay tuned to the end. So I just want to show you guys a close-up of how thin the potatoes are. So as you guys can see, they're basically paper thin and they're see-through. So that's what we're going for when you're cutting your potatoes. So then I put my pot on, I filled it up with oil and I turned it on to a high heat. Now I put it on temperature 11. So this is high heat, but it's not fully high because the temperature goes up to 12 normally. So you want to make sure that before you start adding your potato chips in, that you put one in as a tester when you think the oil is ready. And once it starts bubbling, then you'll see that you can add the rest of them in. Now you're going to cook them slowly in batches because the more that you put in will make the oil cool down and it'll take longer for them to cook through. Also, if they're not separated from each other, they'll get stuck together. So you want to make sure that they can still move around and they can still space and spread out and there's not one on top of the other. I know that in this video you guys can see that one is on top of the other, but I did separate them and they cooked perfectly. So I put a timer on for these potatoes and I saw that each one took around about 2.5 to 3 minutes to cook and to be crisp like I liked. It's better to slightly underdo them than burn them and overdo it. So on the side, I also did a bit of another experiment. So I cooked these chips also in the oven. So I got a bowl out, as you guys saw before. I had my little bowl and I put a bit of oil in it. Oh, you guys can see it again here. And I put some oil in it and I just coated the chips in oil and salt, and then I put them in the oven and I cooked them. So I cooked them on 180 degrees Celsius, and it said when I was researching to cook them for around about 10 minutes, but I left them for a bit longer because they weren't crunchy enough. So as you guys can see now, I put that into the oven and I'm worrying about my deep fried chips. So I did prefer the chips that were deep fried, but some of my siblings were saying that they preferred the ones that were oven baked. So I would try both and see, because obviously the oven baked ones will be healthier. Now this is what the potato chips look like when I cooked them in the oven. They were nice and crunchy and they looked Really good, so I do recommend also trying to do them in the oven. As I said at the start of this video, I'm making 4 different types of chips. So the first one was oven baked potatoes. The second one is my barbecue chips. So you get a bowl and you're going to mix together chili powder, garlic powder, salt, onion powder, smoked paprika, pepper, and cayenne powder. And once you've mixed all of those seasonings together, then you're going to add your chips to it, and then you're just going to toss them lightly, and then you might want to put a rack underneath just to let any of the extra seasonings drop off, because you don't want to have too much seasoning stuck to your chips, because then they won't taste that great. Recipe number 3 is just plain sea salt chips. So I just added some salt on top of the chips, and then I tossed them as well, and then got rid of any of the excess salt, and they were ready to eat as well. And number 4 is salt and vinegar. So I added salt to it again, and then I added some white vinegar slowly while tossing my chips. I don't want to add too much vinegar because then they will become soggy, and they tasted so good. So guys, that's it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I haven't had chips for so long, and they taste absolutely amazing, so I was so happy to be able to make these from home and from scratch. So please, if you guys have tried any recipes or would like to share anything, please do that below. And as usual, I have the method and the ingredients in the description below. Have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!